So The Last of Us Season 2 has finally wrapped up, and yikes. I haven't seen critical ratings or reviews take such a plunge in just 2 seasons. I enjoyed the first season of The Last of Us. I mean, it wasn't amazing. I'd say it was like a 7 out of 10 kind of season. But it was a straightforward story, you know, there's a weird father-daughter relationship stemming out of this bleak, apocalyptic world, even at times when these two don't like each other. And carrying the show on his back was definitely Pedro Pascal. It's not just because Joel is such a centerpiece to the show and he's by far the most interesting character, but Pedro Pascal acts circles around the rest of his actors. Which is why it really sucked that they started off the season essentially with Joel's controversial death in the game. That episode in itself was actually really well done. Not just the death, I think, was well adapted, but also the Siege of Jackson, which reminded me of Game of Thrones' Hardhome episode. Sadly, though, that's where the season takes a nosedive, because you've got rid of your MVP actor and character, and now you're following 3 different people: Ellie, Dina, and Abby. I think Abby was decent overall, but very inconsistent. I really like Caitlin Denver as an actor. I think she's phenomenally talented. And whenever she's on screen, albeit very little, she is great and she elevates the season. I do feel, however, they should have gone with a more buff actress, or at least had Caitlin try to train to look more like Abby from the game. But Abby is definitely the most interesting character of the 3 that we've got to follow at this point. For pretty much 90% of the rest of the season, we're following Dina and Ellie, and these two are the most boring dumbasses in cinematic and television history. Can you tell me anything about Dina that isn't Ellie's girlfriend? In the game, Dina is like Ellie's angel on her back. She's trying to keep her in reality, while Ellie is just absolutely consumed with this bloodlust revenge quest. In here, it's just these 2 girl bosses who just go round, and there's no contrasting personalities like there was with her and Joel, and it doesn't really seem like they're learning from each other. It just is 2 characters going around and spewing out some of the most cringeworthy dialogue. And that leads me to Bella Ramsey. Now, I think the criticism and the backlash against her online has been a bit unfair, to say the least, and I blame how terrible Ellie is this season on the writing, because good god, Ellie is obnoxious. The amount of times Ellie is arguing with somebody and her argument is completely illogical, and yet somehow the show portrays her in the right. It honestly reminded me of The Last Jedi with Admiral Holder. Like, of course it was logical for Joe to kill Gale's husband, because they're not just going to allow him back to Jackson. Other people are going to say, well, why aren't you allowing my infected partner to come back to Jackson so I can say goodbye? I think Bella Ramsey is decent as an actress. I just don't think she's leading role material. I think it's because of her lack of experience and the fact that she's kind of still riding the Game of Thrones hype train. I really think Caitlin Denver, who did audition for Ellie back in the day, would have made an absolute better choice. Worse still, this season is missing a great aspect of the show that I really enjoyed, and that's not just the world building, it's also the themes of human duality, and that really came ahead with Joel's decision to save Ellie at the end rather than giving her to the Fireflies. It really opened up a great debate. But this season goes out of its way to portray Joel's actions as selfish, and he never stands up for himself. I wasn't super into The Last of Us anyway, but I was interested enough to keep going. Now that we're not getting season 3 until 2027, and it's going to be through Abby's perspective, yeah, the woman who killed Joel, it's just not enough to get me back in. The only thing good about The Last of Us is the fact that I get to see Critical Drinker's weekly thoughts on it.